This video will discuss minor spoilers for the game Sea of Stars, such as enemies, combat, and a little bit of plot spoilers. It is highly recommended that you play the game for yourself in order to form your own opinions. I think that it is always a good idea to look at reviews before getting something. We live in a world where time and money are everything, and we certainly don't want to let it go to waste. Originally, I was going to create a video game review on The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess, as it was a game that I enjoyed and knew a lot about. However, I realized that reviewing a game that is 18 years old and incredibly hard to access nowadays probably wasn't the best choice. Instead, I chose a game I picked up on a Steam sale a couple months back that I hadn't gone around to playing yet. And that game was Sea of Stars. And wow, what a game it was. It had been a while since I last played an RPG, about 3 years roughly, but I can say that the genre still hits as hard as it did when I was younger. But before we get started, I want to reiterate that the best way to enjoy this game is to play it yourself. It's about $40 on Steam and is free on PlayStation Plus. There's also a demo on Steam, which is a great way to get a feel for the game. In this video, I'll be reviewing the game Sea of Stars, showing its strengths and weaknesses, whether that be in art direction, the gameplay, or the story. There are times in this video where I will get very critical. However, I want to preface that it is from a place of love, and I am very excited for what this company creates next. Sea of Stars was made by the company Sabotage Studios, a Quebec-based indie video game company. It is a sequel to their previous title, The Messenger, a side-scroller game completely different to the genre of Sea of Stars. The company has stated that it is not required to have played The Messenger to understand the plot of Sea of Stars, though I will add that there are plenty of references between the two games that can answer many questions you may have about the story. The game was first announced through Kickstarter back in March of 2020. After 3 years of development, the game was released to the public on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and Nintendo Switch on August 29, 2023. It reached critical success, so much so that it released 250,000 copies in the first week, and was nominated for the Best RPG and Best Indie Game of the Year at the Game Awards of 2023, to which the game won the latter award. Sea of Stars is a love letter to the RPGs and JRPGs of the past, like Chrono Trigger, Paper Mario, and the Mario RPG series. It even features composer Yasunori Mitsuda, who scored the soundtrack of Chrono Trigger and the Xeno series. As of January of 2024, there are plans for the game to have DLC, so look forward to that in the future. I think that that's enough of an introduction. Let's talk about the main aspect of any good game. Whenever I play a video game, I want to enjoy most of the time I spend playing it. That's right, we're talking about the Sea of Stars takes an interesting approach to its combat system. As mentioned earlier, the game takes heavy inspiration from other single-player JRPGs of the past, like Chrono Trigger, Paper Mario, and the Alpha Dream Super Mario RPG games. With prior knowledge of these games, the similarities are very apparent. But Sea of Stars takes its own unique spin on things. Each of the 6 party members have their own unique type of attacks, as well as combo attacks performed by other party members with different types of effects. To boost different types of attacks, there is a mechanic called Live Mana, which allows the player to increase attacks and add their own secondary effects to them. Instead of a speed stat for your party and enemies like most RPGs, there is a turn counter system. Each enemy has a countdown for when they can make another move, which goes down after every move you make. When the countdown reaches 0, it's the enemy's turn to attack. You also can use special skills that consume magic points. These do more damage and can have unique after effects. You can regain magic points after doing physical attacks. It's a fun way to add variety to your attacks, and introduces a management system into the game. You're not the only person who can cast magic in this game. Enemies can set up magic attacks as well. To stop them from attacking, you need to break their locks using the abilities from every party member. It adds a fun challenge that involves micromanaging the orders of your attacks and planning ahead. If the enemy attacks, you're able to block them to reduce the damage output. But that's just the combat. The gameplay loop follows the standard formula in terms of interactions with the game world. Encounter a problem, go to a location, look for 2 or 3 MacGuffins in the dungeon area, solve overworld puzzles, fight enemies throughout, and finish the segment off with a boss. This cycle is repeated throughout the entire game. I think it works pretty well. Even better if you're a fan of gameplay. But if it doesn't sit well with you after the first couple hours, it probably won't get any better for you. There are multiple times where the combat cycle would get a little bit too monotonous. This, combined with a lack of a runaway option in fights like the other RPGs it's based on, can lead to people like me getting a little bit annoyed when I'm put in a fight at some points. That isn't to say that the gameplay loop is all bad. No area felt like it overstayed its welcome, and with this game being about 25 to 30 hours in length on first playthrough, that is incredibly impressive. After all, the lengthy introduction to Twilight Princess was the reason why I decided to just switch to Sea of Stars in my project. If the cycles of puzzles and combat begin to wear you down, there are little distractions dispersed throughout the game as a change of pace. The two that stick out to me are the fishing minigames. Seriously, what is the deal with indie games and fishing? And a completely unique minigame called Wheels. I won't go too in-depth into how the game works, but I will admit that it actually made me spend a lot more time on the game than I would like to admit. There's an interesting healing system in the game, as you can forage for supplies to then cook up meals to eat during combat. As well, there are campfires littered throughout the world as a way to fully replenish your HP and MP. The fires might be a little too common though, so much so that it makes the healing items feel kind of redundant, as why would you waste your food on healing when you can just use a campfire for free when it's just a screen away? This could easily be solved by the player just ignoring the campfires to give them a bigger challenge if they want. On that note, the player is given in-game options that can make the game easier or more difficult depending on what they toggle on and off. You can heal up after fights, or decrease your maximum HP to a tenth of what it was originally. It's all up to the player and can be changed at any time, which is something underrated that I really appreciate. I played the game without adjusting any of the settings. I had about half a dozen game overs. I wouldn't go around saying the base game is very difficult. Also, the game, as of 6 months after release, is pretty polished. I only encountered one graphical bug that didn't really affect my gameplay, although I encountered a soft lock where I had to reset about half an hour's worth of progress due to the fact I was recording, and I hadn't saved in a while. The game is being consistently updated though, so I'm not worried about these issues going unnoticed. Overall, I'd say that the gameplay of Sea of Stars is fun. Sometimes it can get a little repetitive, but that's something many RPGs struggle with by nature. That's enough about the gameplay. I think another important part of the game is how it presents itself, and for that, we're going to need to talk about. I think the game's major selling point is the art direction, because wow, is this game beautiful. I think it's up there with Elden Ring and Paper Mario the Origami King for one of the most visually pleasing games I've ever played. Everything from the music to the character designs to the animations. It's just all gorgeous. Every setting tells a story by just walking around it. A beautiful waterfall, a quaint village by the water, a haunted ship, and a lively swamp. Every place feels real. Nothing really made me think, how is this possible? I mean, maybe the fact it's a fantasy RPG, but also everything felt connected in a way. Then there are times when the game really gets to flex its muscles and show you its best parts. At the beginning of the game, you ride down a mountain and encounter a huge dragon. It's so big that you can see it on the overworld map. Later, throughout the game, you're able to see that same dragon travel the world. Also, there is the whole town of Brisk. By hearing the music and walking around, you can feel how lively it is. The cramped housing, the bright colors, the beach and port, it feels like a coast town. The Sea of Nightmares feels like a surreal, nightmare. The abandoned ships, the constant rain, it all feels real. One minor thing that is visually impressive by the pixel art style is how the world moves. You can see the water rippling, flowers blowing. It makes you feel immersed in the world. You can set your controller down and watch as your party members stay vigilant, or kind of just poke around. These are small details, but they make a huge difference in the whole world. The character designs are no slouch either. Each member of the party feels unique in their own design. The two most secretive characters having the least amount of their face shown really helps add visually to their character. The ultimate attacks, as for JRPG fashion, are extremely long-winded and are more show than tell. But in this case, that's not a bad thing. I mean, just look at this. And that's not even mentioning the music. Each bit of the soundtrack feels unique and perfectly describes the tone and feeling of the area. Here are some of my favorites. It's worth mentioning that the entire soundtrack is on Spotify. Another detail worth mentioning are the different versions of songs. Most of the time, there are 3 variations on overworld themes: day, night, and pirate. Yes, I'm being serious. It adds atmosphere and makes each environment feel a bit more lived in. And all of these stellar aspects of the art direction is put on full display during one of the greatest sequences of the game, the Sea of Stars. The music is ethereal. The background really looks like a galaxy, and the image of a boat effortlessly gliding along the completely reflective water will always stick in my mind. As the transition between the 2 different worlds in the game, it really works. When the sequence fully bends your mind when the perspective changes to be behind the characters and switch art styles briefly, it's just so good. I think the word that describes the art direction best is stellar. So much so that I'm able to forgive some of the game's shortcomings, because I'm always excited to see how the next area looked or sounded. Although, I think that is enough about me loving the art direction. Let's see if the game has any meat on its bones, in terms of... I'd say that one of the main reasons of why I play RPGs is for the story. So, how well does it hold up? Well, the answer is, You need a brief synopsis of what the game is about. Solstice warriors Valir and Zale are tasked with ridding the world of the evil creatures left by the Fleshmancer. However, during this quest, something goes wrong, and an evil is unleashed. The 2 warriors team up with Garl, the warrior cook, Seri, the assassin, Rashan, the mysterious immortal alchemist, and Bist. Well, that's the thing, he's always changing forms, I don't know what he is. Together, they travel across the world and into a different dimension to save everyone. The beginning and middle hold up quite well, actually. They tell the story of kids growing up and getting ready to face the world. There are fun characters and great moments that are helped by the main cast bouncing off each other very well. Garl, in particular, is a great character. He's just so outgoing and fun to watch. There's a fun plot twist that is revealed near the middle of the game that kind of flips the game on its head. Near the end of the story, though, it felt like everything was getting a bit more bloated. I think that despite some segments being paced well in the final act, the game kind of procrastinated getting to the ending of the story. Unfortunately, it doesn't help that the ending of Sea of Stars is by far the weakest section of the game. A lot of the minor issues of the game are put on full display. The main cast diminishes in personality to the point where you could change who is speaking the dialogue and it won't make a difference. In the normal ending, the final boss isn't even the big bad of the game. It's someone else. And then, right after the game, it just rushes right into the credits, with many issues being unresolved in terms of plot and character development. There is a saving grace to this, that being that there are 2 endings to Sea of Stars. The normal ending, which is accomplished by beating the game normally, and the true ending, which is accomplished by finishing all side quests and doing all the optional content along with getting the normal ending. The true ending solves a lot of these problems I just brought up earlier. The party gets a lot more personality, and underutilized characters get to shine more often. My main issue with the true ending of Sea of Stars is that it does 2 things. 1, it backpedals on the most important story beat of the game. And 2, it forces the player to do side quests to get a satisfactory ending. I shouldn't need to find 60 seashells around the world to get the ending I want. It defeats the whole name of a side quest. There are other indie game RPGs that handle true endings well also. Undertale's a great example. It doesn't force the player to do side quests to finish the main quest, and it continues the story in a logical manner until you fight the true final boss. Personally, I think the devs bit off a bit more than they could chew, and it ended up leaving an unsatisfactory ending. It's really disappointing how much the ending was a letdown for me, because the rest of the story was actually really enjoyable. Sea of Stars is an RPG that invokes the feeling of the old classics. Its okay story, fun gameplay, and stellar art direction landed at an 8.5 out of 10 for me. A great game that's ending slightly misses the mark. I think fans of turn-based RPGs like Pokemon, Paper Mario, Chrono Trigger, Undertale, and the Alpha Dream Mario RPG games will find this game enjoyable. If you consider this review helpful or unhelpful, consider writing a comment down below, telling me what I did well and what I can improve on. My name's Nicholas, and I hope you have an excellent day.